8 hours later, 13 hours later. Yeah, you're probably doing something cooler later, but every day from 9 to 5, you're probably sitting in front of your laptop like we are, looking bummed.
Audio Jungle.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Experts About Nothing. We hope you're having a good week so far.
Right, time to kick it. All right, so before we get into our episode, we're going to do our classic plug. We have some fun stuff planned out for our Instagram, some fun collabs coming soon. So follow us at our Instagram at Experts About Nothing. And then please also click subscribe to the pod on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever else you listen to podcasts. And follow us on our TikTok.
Yes, our TikTok could be popping off.
Could be in another universe.
But today we have a spicy topic. We're going to be talking about FOMO and insecurity, and we know all of us have felt this in different ways in our life. And also, there's so many different types of FOMO. I feel like we only hear about the traditional, man, like, I wish I was there, wasn't. But there's so many different levels of FOMO that we wanted to cover today. We can start off with a good old definition.
We're pulling out the facts for you guys from reputable sources. Mm-hmm. So, according to the NIH, FOMO was introduced in 2004 to describe a phenomenon observed on social networking sites, basically describing the fear of missing out. That's what it stands for, if you didn't know. And I thought it was interesting that the NIH directly correlates FOMO to social media.
Yeah.
They were like, this was started due to social media and nothing else. But I think the term was definitely started due to social media.
Yeah, because before, unless you talked to people, you never had any idea what they were doing or like what they were up to. But now we just have so much access to see what everyone's up to, not just like celebrities or people that live like more famous lives.
Yeah. Yes, every new social media actually capitalizes on FOMO. That's how they thrive almost. Now there's Be Real, and it's like, okay, post something random from like a random moment of your day. And there was like Snapchat and Instagram. And it's like more and more about like, show me every granular moment of your day, not just the curated Instagram content. Because Instagram at first was just like posts on your feed. And then they expanded to stories and reels. It just feels like now social media has so many different entry points to like even the unglamorous or like unfiltered parts of your life, which is a good thing, but can also like, I think that the intention of it was maybe to like curb FOMO, to be like, oh look, not everyone's super curated and like you brushing your teeth or like doing something normal or something.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, I feel like it could still instill FOMO.
I was actually just gonna say that because I feel like Be Real. I love the concept initially where it's like you have 2 minutes at a random point of your day to take the photo. Mm-hmm. I thought it would stay that way to the point where if you are late, you can't post that day.
Yeah.
Then you can actually be sure that what people post, they're posting at that moment. Now we have like 8 hours later, 13 hours later. Yeah, you're probably doing something cooler later, but every day from 9 to 5, you're probably sitting in front of your laptop like we are, looking bum. That's probably the reality of the situation. And I'm like, I don't understand that. And then now it's like, if you post a Be Real, you can post 2 more at any random point of the day.
Wait, really? I didn't even know
that. You didn't know that? Yeah.
Okay, I kind of like got off the Be Real wagon, but wait, that's crazy. So you can post out 3 photos a day?
So basically, if you post at the time that Be Real goes off, then you can post 2 more Be Reals whenever you want.
Okay, so it's an Insta story.
Which is crazy. But it's like, personally, I wish we were never even allowed to post after the 2-minute slot. So it's basically like, okay, like if you happen to be on your phone at that time, then like, cool, you can see what everyone else is up to at that time. But then if you miss it, you're done for the day. But then it would be against their business model because you're not on the app seeing what people are doing. Exactly.
I know. I kind of gave up on Be Real, honestly, but when it first came out, I noticed that I would be like, oh, you know what? Why take my Be Real now? I'm going to take it when I'm doing this cool thing later in the day, or like I have this dinner later, or like a party later. It's like, that's not the point of Be Real. I am being so fake.
But anyway, tangent.
So that is what FOMO is. It is the fear of missing out. It's basically a form of jealousy. And while we were talking about this, my first thought was like, FOMO's natural. There's a certain level of FOMO that is always going to be there because jealousy exists, and you're always going to be kind of comparing yourself to others and wondering what other people are doing. And when you notice something that someone's doing that you're not doing, you're going to potentially crave to do that thing.
Yeah, or it'll at least be like really hooked to see that kind of stuff. That happens so often where it's like you're on Instagram. Like, for example, Coachella time, I look at like influencer stories and I'm like, what are their houses looking like? What do they have access to? Like, I'm just curious, but I'm like, part of me, I have FOMO, but it's also like the intrigue of like, what are they getting? Like, what are they doing? Like, how hype is it? Like, that type of vibe.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it'll only satisfy one itch, which is like that itch of like, I am jealous, but I still want to know, you know?
Yeah, I think you touched on an interesting point that FOMO is a little bit addictive. And I think that's why social media is so addictive.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a sadness associated with the fear of missing out, but there's like a hit of adrenaline with it too.
Yeah.
And I notice that with like influencers and also with friends sometimes. You know, if I know everyone's hanging out at a certain spot and I'm not, like, I'm still gonna like immediately click all the circles just to like see what they're up to, and you do feel kind of bad, but you still just kind of,
you want to know.
I don't know what the root of that is, but you really want to know, even if it hurts you sometimes,
even if it like feels horrible. You're like, I kind of want more of it, and it's almost like a self-sabotage type of thing where you're like, you hate it. And you don't want to see it, but you want to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that is kind of similar to like the feeling on social media where you block someone or like you mute someone and then you still check their profile. Like, intentionally
you go
to their
out of
profile
your way
just to scratch that itch. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird, but people do it. I do it literally every week, like for one random reason or another. Right. And it's like so hard to control. But if anyone else has any tips as well, happy to hear, because I could use them.
I know. Yeah. It's hard to cut it out, especially when it becomes like a habit.
Yeah. So now let's dive into kind of the different types of FOMO. We can kind of do a high level on what they are. So first, group FOMO, then individual plan FOMO, then we have life FOMO. So we're going to dive into each of those and what exactly we mean by them. So we'll start with group.
Okay, so group FOMO is like your friends or people who are really close to you that you trust. I feel like the big thing is like you already have good relationships with these people. They're doing something, and for some reason or another, you can't be there. So it's like, oh, there's like a celebratory event. Maybe all of your friends are super tight with someone, and they're invited to their wedding, and like you're not tight with that person, so you're not there. This happens all the time. Literally, I'm going to have FOMO this Saturday. All my friends are going to the Yankees game, and I'm going home. So I know I'm going to have preemptive FOMO already. It's like all my besties, and you're not going to be there for some reason. I feel like, to me, this FOMO is the least painful. Especially when you're like in a circle of people you trust. I'm not really worried too much that everyone's gonna be bonding without me. I feel secure in my bonds with all of these people. It's just more like, damn, I'm missing out on all the fun.
Yeah.
You know?
This FOMO is the easiest one to stomach in some ways, but then in other ways, I'm like, it's really not. When you are somewhere else doing something else you love or with other people you love, then it like lessens the blow. But then when you're literally doing a nothing and everyone else is somewhere, that's when it's like, I am depressed.
It hits extra hard when you're sitting around.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like you're living life as much as these other people.
I know. For some reason, I feel like FOMO triggers insecurity, which is why these two topics flow so closely together. Even though the rational part of taking this weekend, for example, the rational part of my brain knows, oh, I booked this trip home. I'm going home for XYZ reason. That doesn't mean anything. I'm just going to be like, oh, am I not fun? I'm not doing like fun things with my friends. I'm not doing summer activities. Like you like question all of these characteristics about yourself.
Fully unrelated.
So unrelated and also just completely off base. There are actual circumstances for why you can't be there. And you're making it mean something about who you are.
And taking it so personally.
Yeah. It's bizarre. And then you just
so
like,
weird.
Also the weird thing about FOMO is you can't really admit it. You can be like, oh my God, I have FOMO, but it feels immature to a certain level.
I am always screaming I have FOMO.
I mean, yeah, I think everyone screams it.
Yeah.
But it's like childish almost.
I know it feels childish, but it's like the older you get, I think it affects you less. I think the younger I was, oh my God, like I'd have the biggest FOMO in college, and I'd be like depressed about it because I'd be like, because of this, I can't do this. Like, because of this, and I'd be like, okay, well, it was my choice to like do any of these things. So it's like, what's more important? Now as an adult, because we have so much more freedom with our schedules and we plan our lives more than we have before, and we don't let other people and like other things dictate it as much, that we have more hands-on control. So I don't feel as horrible, you know? Also, you can have this type of FOMO after the event. I feel like sometimes you don't go to something, you end up like not thinking it'll be that big of a deal, and then you end up missing on like a really fun night out, and then everyone is like talking about this night for the next 10 months.
Stories
from like 4 different people.
Yeah, and you're like, ugh. Every time it's a reminder when people are like, oh my God, remember that time? And you're like, I wasn't there.
You're like, yeah, I was at home. Like,
and you're just salty. That's really what it is.
I know. Sometimes it's like the FOMO of missing out on the memory reminiscing later, which that's more prevalent to me in the celebratory sense, less on like the day-to-day sense of like people hanging out. You know, the novelty of like a normal hangout kind of wears away over time after you like go to so many of them. You're like, okay, we've all had like great fun nights out, and like sometimes people can't make it. But then when it's like a celebration, one that you know is kind of like a bigger deal, or if it's literally just like, it is a close friend of yours, you were invited, you just couldn't make it. Yeah. That's the worst.
I know, that is the worst. Yeah, I agree that those hit different, especially it's like a moment that you won't get back, or like an event that you won't get back. And something that I just thought of that's like a big part of group FOMO is the financial aspect of it.
Oh my God, literally everything is expensive. The older you get, the more expensive everything becomes.
Yeah.
And naturally, the older you get, the more you make, the more you want to do bougier and bougier things.
Yeah.
And it just becomes this point where you're like, I'm going to have to say no to a couple things, because if I go to everything, I'll be net negative.
And it's so dependent on like what stage of life you're in and what you can prioritize at that time. Like everyone's finances are so different. Even if you're in a similar job or like similar city, you don't know how much people are willing to spend on certain things.
Of course.
And then you kind of have to, like, that's actually one of the biggest struggles I find living in New York, where it's like, oh, I have to balance FOMO and having these experiences with my actual financial goals. And sometimes you have to make these trade-offs, and a lot of times I feel like I sacrifice my financial goals for the FOMO, and then I'm like, why am I doing this for FOMO? Like, I need to learn how to stomach the FOMO a little bit more and just, like, sit my butt at home if I don't want to, like, spend money on something that I don't care about as much as something else I want down the line, you know?
Exactly. And I feel like there's such a fine line between sacrificing for savings all the time, but then also sacrificing for FOMO all the time. Everyone has their own financial goals, and, like, everyone's families are different backgrounds, and like I think it's just important to understand that it's not just them, it's like how they were brought up.
Yeah, there's so much
what
context.
They prioritize, like what's coming up in their lives, like things like that. And I think it's just important to have that lens and then also be able to turn that on and off for yourself, because if you're able to say no to things that don't bring you as much joy, then you will be so much happier going to the things that do bring you a lot of joy.
Yeah. It's a lot of self-reflection to know what you actually would like to spend your money on and spend your time on too. Like, it's not just financial scarcity, it's like time scarcity. I feel that all the time. On the weekends, recently, we talked about this in our last episode, which was around alcohol, but sometimes I'm like, if I go out at night, my next day is shot, or I'm gonna just be like sleep deprived or something, and then I feel like I'm losing time the next day of like things I want to do. And I'm like, I'm doing all of this because I'm gonna have FOMO for like not going out to the same 3 bars we go to like every weekend, right? So sometimes really having a moment of reflection to know, what do you actually want to do for this weekend, or what do you want to spend your money on, and what would be a more meaningful experience for you, is kind of the way to snap yourself out of the FOMO mentality.
And also your body, definitely your time as well with sleeping, but like that can mess you up. I drank 2 nights in a row last weekend, and I had the hardest 12/3/30 of my life yesterday. And I was like, I am just beat up. And I now have to start from the beginning. And it's like, sometimes you don't need to go so hard all the time just to like be present. And like, you don't need to drink all the time also. You can have FOMO and then channel it different ways. Your FOMO doesn't have to lead you to doing the exact same thing as others. It could be doing a modified version as well that's like more catered to you and that doesn't sacrifice things like finances, things like your health, things like your sleep. It's just about like having strict boundaries. I think FOMO directly correlates with boundaries.
Yeah.
And also just being able to speak up for yourself and like what you need.
Agreed. Group FOMO.
Check.
The next is individual plan FOMO.
Okay, so this type of FOMO is basically when people hang out in more intimate groups. So it's either like one-on-one plans or like smaller 3 to 4 people. Like, but it's like you're not invited to that thing at that
even
time.
though you're all friends.
I think there's something interesting to say also about getting invited and then being able to deny the invite. You feel more powerful in that situation because it's like someone asked you, you just said no. But where it's like no one asked you, maybe you didn't want to go, it still burns a little bit more.
Yeah, you're like, well, you could have asked.
Exactly. And I wouldn't have felt as FOMO, you know?
Yeah. I know. And I think the thing about individual plan FOMO is it can be like a physical plan, but it can also be a group message. Like, I think honestly, I feel the most individual FOMO, not in person. I'm feeling it like, oh, I know they're having that conversation without me, or like they had this FaceTime without me, or like something like that.
I literally get pissed all the time. Whenever Priya and Avanti have a FaceTime and I'm not there, I'm like, how rude and disrespectful. My two best friends.
I know. And
having talk without me.
Deeksha and I hang out literally every millisecond of the day.
Yeah, and I think I always forget that. And then I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, true.
So true.
But
yeah, I feel this type of FOMO when I know that other people in our friend group are having these close bonding connections.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, why isn't it me?
Yeah.
And then you're like feeling this weird type of FOMO. I feel like this is a part of growing up, is understanding that people have different friends for different things. You could be best friends with someone, but you're not going to be their go-to friend for everything in life.
Absolutely, everything. And also, if you think about it, that is exhausting.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that go-to person for everyone. That will drain you at the end. And it's best to have relationships where you can kind of spread the weight across different amazing friendships. It's like you don't want to be relying on a romantic partner or relationship to fulfill every single need because they can't. They're one person and you should be spreading the weight among all of your loved ones. And that's how you have a strong, fulfilling life.
Yeah, exactly. But it can hurt also. Something about friendships gives you this, I don't even know the right term for this. Making friends is a challenging process, and it like takes so long for you to have a really genuine friendship that once you have one, you're like, you're mine. Like it's like
protective over it.
It's protective. You're kind of like obsessive almost. And it's like a childish thing where you're like, you're my best friend. I don't want you to be anyone else's best friend or whatever. But yeah, it's a kind of a weird thing to like grow out of. And this is a harder one to not take personally, I think, especially when you're in a larger friend group and certain divisions of the friend group are hanging out, because then you're like, but we're all friends.
Yeah.
So like, why am I not in this or something? And it's not as much of an open invite like group FOMO where usually you're like kind of in on the plan, but you just can't go for some reason.
Yeah. No, I feel that. It's important to understand that at different points in your life, you're going to be close to different people.
Yeah. And something to note, at least for us, I think, one-on-one hangouts is the way we deepen our friendships with people or like solidify or reconnect. And it's such an important part of friendships. Like, not everything can be a 10-person group hang. Like, I don't know. I personally don't think I can have, like, really genuine connections with people when we're constantly just hanging in a big group. And so reminding yourself that, like, everyone needs that space to maybe, like, connect with someone on a smaller level.
And a deeper level.
Yeah. You're going to be able to talk about more things, like a wider breadth of things. It's not as much of like a party. Social environments can be kind of overwhelming. You're not going to have like super deep convos there.
No, I feel like it's very surface level. Hi, how are you? How's work? How's life?
Yeah, you look cute. Great. Whatever. Like, it's like so brush by and then you're like having fun or whatever, but it's not like you're really getting updates. I think about this sometimes. I see the same people for like weeks at a time and I'm like, wait, I don't even know anything about their job or like anything about their deep life, because every time we're in this setting, it's not really like you're getting to know them. You're just in this group setting that's a bit superficial. So yeah, like I think reminding ourselves these one-on-one hangouts and like relationships and conversations are really important for actually genuinely connecting with people. And everyone should have that. And almost like FOMO could be a way to motivate you, not in a competitive manner, but just be like, oh, maybe I should reach out to someone that I haven't talked to in a while that I care about, to like make sure that we're having that same type of bonding.
Yeah. And I also feel like, especially when you are not in the same place as someone, it's really hard to like actually initiate that FaceTime, because you're like, I could, but maybe they're busy, or like, I'm exhausted, maybe not today. And it's like easy to push that off, but the more proactive you are about it, you never regret it. So don't be afraid to be the person that makes the move. No. That could also recover a lot of friendships and strengthen some that, you know, maybe are a little bit more distant now.
Yeah, completely. I think the stages of life convo that you mentioned leads into our last FOMO group, which is life FOMO. Personally, this is the one that I struggle with the most because it's hitting you on a deeper level, and it also is the one that I feel like is the most linked to insecurities.
Completely agree.
But this is more like, okay, people are having crazy life experiences, whether that be traveling, stages of life, marriage, engagement, grad school, all of that stuff. Even just sometimes having FOMO around the level of confidence someone's in. I think life FOMO, it's not always like a physical thing where like, oh, they have this thing that I don't have. It can also be like, wow, they're just operating at a completely different frequency, especially when it's your peer, that like, I'm not there yet. I am not at that level of self-confidence. I'm not at that level of being that self-assured. You almost feel a sense of FOMO around it.
Listen, there is nothing more I relate to than FOMO of confidence. I think that is the least talked about type of FOMO, quote unquote, because it's just someone's aura that you are envious of, or someone's relationship that you're envious of, like how strongly they feel. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I have a couple friends that are happily in a relationship, but I can never understand how they are so madly in love. But some part of me does feel a level of FOMO, because I'm like, is that normal? It just makes you think. And then you're like, different people operate differently in different scenarios as well. You have to think about it like, no two relationships are the same. No two friendships are the same. No two people are the same. So really, when you're bringing two people together in a friendship or relationship, whatever it is, you have to think about how many like dynamics there are to navigate, and like how we even see in reality TV, in our day-to-day shows, there's so many different personalities. So naturally, different people will feel different things. Honestly, it took me years to understand that it's like actually just how they operate, but a lot of people, a lot of couples don't operate like that. And that's like completely okay. And it's also like a boundaries thing. Different people have different level of boundaries. Yeah. So yeah, but all that is to say, having life FOMO, confidence FOMO, sometimes people are confident about different things. It comes out in different ways. We're not the shyest people in the room, but that doesn't mean we don't have insecurities about other things.
There's so much gray area, and it's also so funny because it's the way that you see yourself versus the way that other people see you. Yeah. And same thing for when you look at someone else. Because like, I think a lot of times we look at someone, we're like, whoa, they're so confident. They have this amazing aura about them. And we have like some type of FOMO, especially, oh, I'm like older than this person, or I don't know, like I've lived here longer, but they like came here and they just like are seizing the city. Like, I don't know.
Slaying their opportunities.
Yeah. And you're just like, what is up with me? And I think it's important to realize that like a lot of times when you feel FOMO, it's just a reflection of your own insecurities. And like maybe that's a signal for you to dig deeper into why you have this perception of yourself. And why am I looking at this as FOMO versus that's an inspiring person? Why is there this tinge of jealousy or like negativity? And usually I think that has like a direct correlation with the depth of your insecurity and like your own level of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Because if you're feeling like, I know where I'm at, that doesn't mean that I don't have an ambition to grow. It just means I'm content and I can gather inspiration from people around me to like continue to like evolve, you know?
To continue your growth at whatever pace is suitable for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you say that, because that's probably the hardest thing to do. to like just like come back to reality, be like, okay, like they're on a different journey than I am, they're on a different timeline than I am. I like am aware I have to work on these things, so I will do that, but it's not going to change by tomorrow. It's also about letting yourself understand that you can have a goal and like slowly work your way up to it. You don't need to like be the most, you see someone confident and then try to be that person tomorrow. Like you need to become that version of yourself, not that version of themselves.
Yeah, you can't copy someone.
Yeah,
you're not
trying
just
to
like mimic someone's life.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be happy if you did. So I think that's the same thing with like the relationship thing where it's like your dynamic is authentic to you. That doesn't mean that your dynamic can't grow or change. Like if there is certain things that you feel like you want to incorporate in your relationship, you can do that in your own way.
Exactly.
Like especially with social media, it's such a comparison game because you're like, I got one rose for Valentine's Day, they got a bouquet. And like, or like, I don't know, like you just feel like everyone's stunting all the time. So you're like, what the hell is wrong with my life?
Yeah.
When in reality, everyone probably feels like that about like the next person that they see. So,
or about different aspects of their life. You might be seen as exceeding in your career, but then another person might have the most amazing, beautiful side hustle that's like thriving. And then you could be like, okay, I'll have a good career, but like they have this cool side hustle and like they're famous or like whatever. But it's like everyone is like committing different amounts of time to different things. And like you don't see all the work that goes behind anyone, whether that's their personality, their confidence level, their accolades, what they succeed in, what they don't succeed in. You don't see all of it. And I think it's important to understand that like whatever you're seeing is because they went through all the trials and tribulations they did to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think that was everything with life FOMO. And to close it out, do you think you can be truly content with FOMO?
The drama. I think you can, as long as you're aware that it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like FOMO is going to happen. You're going to feel jealous sometimes. You're going to feel like you don't have it all. And facts, you probably don't. But that's okay because no one has it all. And you just need to understand that it's going to come with time. It's going to come with patience and like slowly it'll lessen if you're more aware of it.
Yeah, and I think the more presence you have and like the more contentment you have with yourself, the less FOMO is going to feel like FOMO. FOMO, for some reason, reminds me of, like, just getting triggered. And I think you can have FOMO and not be triggered. If you, like, are having FOMO just because you're like, oh, man, I wish I was there. But, like, you're not, like, stewing over it for, like,
I can't believe they're having so much
fun without me. Yeah. And, like, I want to be there and I can't because of X, Y, Z. Like, if you're not getting triggered, I think FOMO is, like, fine and natural and, like, maybe could inspire you to, like, realize things that you want. Yeah. But if you're getting triggered, then, like, I think there's a deeper rooted issue that, like, you have to keep chipping away at.
Yeah, and as you said, like, I think a lot of it is also working on being really present with yourself and, like, with whatever you're doing at the time. Because a lot of the time, you get FOMO when you're looking at social media. So it's like...
True that. Usually if you're having FOMO, it's like, could I be using my time doing something else?
Doing something else, maybe... to make plans like this that I'm jealous about, or to do a fun activity that I've always wanted to do, or anything that like you could do alone. Another way to be more content with it is spending more time with yourself.
That is so true. I think if you don't view being alone as a negative, that will unlock so much in your life and also reduce the amount of FOMO that you experience.
Yeah, and a lot of the times when you are in that predicament that we initially talked about, where it's like, I have FOMO, but also I'm exhausted and I could really use some sleep, you can say no and do something else. Like, you can say no to getting dinner with like a group of people where you know it's going to be dinner, bottomless drinks, all this crazy stuff, and just get takeout and sit at home and watch a movie. And that could be 10x more satisfying and cheaper, and you're happier at the end of it. That's something we need to start normalizing.
Oh, for sure.
Just because you don't want to hang out with someone doesn't mean you don't like them. I don't know. Like, at a given time. Every time might be a little weird.
If every time you don't want to hang out.
Every time something's signaling to you. But generally, like, if you invite someone to hang out and they say, I'm good, and they do something else, it's okay.
Yeah,
like, I feel like that's
yeah.
okay. It's one thing if they're two-timing you with their plans, but if they're just spending time with themselves or, like, they had plans to do that already, then it's like, okay, it's not a big deal. It's not offensive. They just need to rest.
Mm-hmm. So true, sister.
Thank you, sister. Okay, favorite. Okay, what TV show are you most looking forward to this week?
It's a tie between... No, it's not a tie. Succession. But it's always going to be Succession for the next few weeks. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a cop-out. Vanderpump Rules was my other one.
Okay. Mine, I have two also. One, it's not like I'm eagerly waiting for it. I just can't binge it because I'll be an emotional wreck. Firefly Lane. I am obsessed with that show. That show has me on a chokehold. It is so sad. Yeah. Right now, it is really pulling on my heartstrings, but I can't stop watching it. And obviously Vanderpump Rules because I need to know.
I'm ready to see
the scandal.
Events.
I'm ready to see the scandal.
The scandal of it all. Like,
yeah.
I would like to see it. Like, I'm sick of hearing about it. We've gone through all the podcasts, all the Reddit pages, all the rabbit holes. I'm done. Like, I want to see the event. I'm here for the main event.
I want to see our queen's reaction.
I want to see Ariana. I want to see the reunion.
I know. And frankly, this is going to stretch into the summer. I know it.
Yeah, they're milking. And
the thing is, I can't stop watching.
No, and so we're not going to stop watching anything. We're watching everything plus the additional extended clips.
And the thing is, I did not know these people existed until maybe 4 weeks ago. So that's the embarrassing part of it all.
Right. But you know what? It is some quality entertainment.
This is probably the best reality TV I've ever watched in my life.
No,
it moves so fast.
Good.
There's so much chaotic stuff that happens. Everyone is deranged.
Everyone's crazy.
And no one has any type of boundaries.
If you need a rabbit hole, not saying you should, like, procrastinate, but this is a great one to jump down.
Or if you need just background TV, phenomenal.
Hot take, I need to pay attention.
I need to pay attention to this show, right now, as they come out live.
Oh,
but if I need, like
old episodes. Yeah.
like season 1, 2, 3, I don't care what they did, 20 years.
You can just see the dramatic stuff. But honestly, they were deranged back then, too.
Exactly.
So.
Actually, some people I've talked to, I recommended it to this one girl at work, and then she followed up with me yesterday and was like, oh my God, I started watching Vanderpump Rules. And then I was like, what do you think? So I was like, ready to hear about season 10. She's like, right, like it's all from like 2004, but it's so unhinged. I love it.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold up. You started from season 1?
Such a good show.
So good. So savage. Like the entire thing is savage. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can't stop. It's so good.
No. Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Anyway.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Bye.